Our first reading is from 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 6 through 15. The point is this: the one who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and the one who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each of you must give as you have made up your mind, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to provide you with every blessing in abundance, so that by always having enough of everything, you may share abundantly in every good work, as it is written, He scatters abroad, He gives to the poor, His righteousness endures forever. He who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness. You will be enriched in every way for your great generosity, which will produce thanksgiving to God through us. For the rendering of this ministry not only supplies the needs of the saints, but also overflows with many thanksgivings to God. Through the testing of this ministry you glorify God by your obedience to the confession of the gospel of Christ, and by the generosity of your sharing with them and with all others. While they long for you and pray for you because of the surpassing grace of God that He has given you. Thanks be to God for His indescribable gift. Our second reading is from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 17, verses 11 to 19. On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 lepers approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out, saying, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. When he saw them, he said to them, Go and show yourselves to the priests. And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Were none of them found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner? Then he said to him, Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well. For the past week or two, I've had the song, Ain't Got Time to Die, an African-American spiritual, stuck in my head. I don't know if you've ever heard this song before, and if you haven't, I am not going to do it a great injustice by trying to sing it to you. But I'd encourage you later this afternoon, not during the sermon, to Google it and give it a listen. Now, there are a few lines in this powerful hymn that have been playing in my mind over and over again. Lord, I keep so busy working for the kingdom. Ain't got time to die. When I'm helping the sick, ain't got time to die. When I'm feeding the poor, ain't got time to die. When I'm giving my all, ain't got time to die. And my favorite, now get out of the way, ain't got time to die. So it seemed serendipitous that as I was hearing this song roll over and over again in my head, that I read the lessons appointed for Thanksgiving Eve. Now, I think some of you might remember that I am an Episcopalian. Please don't hold it against me. But one of the perks of being in a sacramental tradition is the lectionary, which is a convenient place to start one's sermon prep. And the lessons appointed for Thanksgiving Eve, 2 of which I've read this morning, combined with that magnificent spiritual, suggested to me that perhaps the Spirit was trying to get my attention. Our gospel reading opens with Jesus walking along the border, separating Galilee from Samaria. The border between home, i.e., what is safe and known, and the unknown, the world of Samaria, a place perceived as dangerous and unclean. The space between what is safe and what is scary, a place I often refer to as our challenge zone, is often the place where most of our personal, emotional, and spiritual growth occurs. Personal growth often only happens in our challenge zones because it is the space where we are willing to take risks. As adults, we are typically risk-averse. But one of the key features of the adolescent brain, which is basically folks roughly between the ages of 12 and 25, is its ability to take risks. In fact, it's an essential evolutionary part of our growth and development. If we didn't have a time in our life where we took risks, we would never start the process of differentiating ourselves from our families of origin. We wouldn't head out and take on the challenges that we would otherwise, especially as adults, be less inclined to do. This is a major difference between the adolescent and adult brain. While the adolescent brain is defined by its risk-taking prowess, the adult brain is known for its general orientation towards stability. Naturally, these are generalizations. Not every adolescent brain is oriented towards risk-taking, and not every adult brain craves stability. But generally speaking, this division in brain formation helps us to understand why there is such tremendous growth during our adolescent years, and why there is a different type of growth, namely expertise or maturity that develop in our adult years. It also helps us to frame, to a certain degree, the struggles expressed between parents and their adolescent youth. Something that I have often suggested to parents whose children have entered these formative years is to see their role not so much as setting firm rules and boundaries, but more or less to see their role as helping their children grasp the boundary between healthy risk-taking, so things like pushing themselves in a sport, maybe taking an advanced placement exam, and dangerous risk-taking. For young folks, something that they can learn from the adult brain is how to discover appropriate boundaries. But the adult brain has some very important things to learn from that adolescent brain, in particular, the need we have to engage our own challenge spaces. In other words, that we adults occasionally need to engage in healthy risk-taking. Most growth occurs in that challenge space. It's a liminal space that exists between our ordinary everyday lives and our feelings related to scare, fear, or panic. I find that adults often confuse their feelings of being uncomfortable with their feelings of being scared. They aren't the same thing. And it's important to understand the difference between the two. Feelings of being scared require immediate work to get safe. But feelings of being uncomfortable or uncertain often require us to lean into those moments, to explore what it is that we have to learn. For adults, feeling of comfortability or uncomfortability or uncertainty are opportunities for growth and personal transformation. I have often observed this moment when running retreats. For those with adolescent-oriented brains and those with adult-oriented brains. One retreat had a high ropes course where teams of two had to make their way up a telephone pole that was then connected via two cables to two other telephone poles. Now, the challenge here was that one cable ran in a straight line between two telephone poles, while the other cable ran at an angle, moving away from the straight line. The first partner had to climb the pole, stand on the first cable, and wait for their partner. I can already feel the anxiety in the room. After the second partner climbed the pole, they had to grasp each other shoulder to shoulder, each of them stepping out onto their own cables. Now, as they moved further down their respective wires, they had to adjust their hold on each other. As the cable set at an angle meant that the climber on that line was moving away from their partner. Eventually, both partners would be holding each other up like this, fully outstretched, until they both had to lean back into their harnesses and fall off the line. The course was designed in a way so that no one, maybe except Shaquille O'Neal, no one could make it all the way to the end, because of the eventual distance between the two cables. What I observed about this high ropes course, which I led for countless groups for many, many years, was that by and large, even the most timid young adults were able to make their way up the pole, meet their partner, and move down at least some of the cable. Often after trying it once, partners would make a second attempt. But folks with a more adult-oriented brain were almost always exceptionally hesitant to even make an attempt. The reassurance of the strength of the cables, each cable could hold up to 5,000 pounds, of the secure depth of the telephone pole, of the expertise of the folks running the course, of the high quality of the harness, rarely had an immediate persuasive effect. The adults who participated in the challenge really had to lean into their own comfortability. They had to discern the important difference between pushing themselves, i.e., recognizing the potential for growth, or giving in to an irrational fear. In a way, I envision the 10 lepers leaning into their challenge zone, summoning up the courage to ask for healing, perhaps expecting Jesus to ignore them and walk on by. But after calling out to Jesus for help, he responds. I wonder if they were surprised. And then he instructs the lepers to head to the priests, and their initial response is to do that, to head to the priest, to take the journey as a matter of faith. On their way, in the midst of the journey, they are healed. But there seems to be a difference between the faith that heals them, walking to the priest, trusting in God's power to make them clean, and the faith that saves them. The notion here is that gratitude is an essential element to a faith that saves, demonstrated by the reality that Jesus confers a saving faith only on the one who returns to give thanks. Leading researchers who study the effects of gratitude, i.e., giving thanks, have noted that people who spend time writing down the things that they are grateful for during the week, managers who thank their staff for the work that they do, and folks in committed relationships who take the time to share their gratitude with one another experience greater happiness, deeper interpersonal connections, and even have fewer visits to their physicians. Some studies even show that the positive effects of giving thanks are most intensely felt by the adult brain. In other words, the benefit of having an attitude of gratitude coincide with emotional maturity. The Samaritan who returns to Jesus experiences a kind of salvific healing, this deeper sense of emotional and spiritual maturity, and the leper does this without ever returning to the priests. There is a deeply reflective moment here, where through the embrace of God's care and love for us all, the healed leper returns to not only thank Jesus, but is sent down the spiritual path for further growth and maturation. Seeking Jesus might not just be about a moment in time in which we say yes to God. It might also include the ongoing process of change and growth, expressed through the deepening of our relationship with God, by our commitment to walking courageous journeys of faith. Journeys of faith that help us embrace a more expansive view of ourselves and the world around us. The 9 who did not return expressed the theological concern of a stagnant faith. A faith where there is no movement, no journey, no gratitude. The Samaritan's response, especially as a foreigner, is repeatedly mentioned. And this is important because it reminds us that Jesus' healing of the foreigner was not just physical, but also spiritual. And that Jesus' salvific healing is available to all. God is all-inclusive. The call to being a people on a journey who have the courage to lean into uncertainty, to engage difference, to meet folks or learn ideas that are foreign to ourselves, to embrace the other, is essential to the development of a vibrant faith. Living into our spaces of courage helps us to understand that the depths of God's power to heal and be present with us is reflected in the kind of response that we have to that power. A response that is ultimately rooted in gratitude and love. In the end, the Samaritan is invited to get up and walk, a reminder that the journey of faith never stops. Or, to say it differently, we ain't got time to die. Amen. Together, let us sing hymn number 353. We will do the first 4 verses. Please stand as you are able.